Jerem.
Here.
Stothard.
Here.
Thompson is absent. Festerson.
Here.
Gurnett.
Here.
Gray.
Here.
Mr. President.
Here. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance and remain standing for our invocation by Councilmember Gray.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Today I wanted to share with you all a couple of quotes, or at least a couple of quotes that I, try to live by, and I think they would be valuable to talk about here. And one was by Robert Kennedy. It says, "Each time someone stands up for an ideal or acts to improve the lot of others or strikes out against injustice, they send forward a ripple of hope." And I hope we always do that. Thank you.
City Clerk certified publication of the Daily Record on June 1st. Notice for a pre-council and regular City Council meeting June 5th, 2012. A current copy of the Meetings Act is posted in a white binder on the east wall of the legislative chambers.
Good afternoon and welcome. This Omaha City Council meeting is conducted in public and by law may only address the topics listed on the published agenda. The Council will hear testimony but will not engage in debate of issues with the public at this meeting. During testimony, it is not appropriate to applaud or convey disapproval. These actions only detract from the formal decorum of the meeting. At this time, I'd also like to make notice here that Council Member Franklin Thompson has been out of the city on University of Nebraska at Omaha business and anticipated returning on Sunday, June the 3rd. However, the death of an aunt requires additional travel, which precludes him from attending today's meeting. At this time, please turn off or mute any electronic device. Mr. Clerk.
Zoning ordinance on final reading and planning board attachments. Item 5 and 6 are one case. 5 is ordinance to rescind the PK parking overlay district for the property located north of Chicago Street and south of Cass Street and east of 84th Street. A, Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. And 6 is ordinance to amend the boundaries of the MCC Major Commercial Corridor Overlay District to incorporate into that district property located north of Chicago Street, south of Cass, and east of 84th Street. A, Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval.
Public hearing on agenda items number 5 and 6 begin now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Jerem. Yes. Stothard.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
They're both passed 6-0. Resolutions, preliminary plats. Item number 7, resolution of preliminary plat entitled Country Club Hills, located southwest of 63rd and Girard, along with attached conditions. Hereby accepted. The preparation of the final plat is hereby authorized. A, Planning Board and Planning Department recommend approval. And we have, I believe, a request to lay that over 3 weeks and continue the public hearing.
Yes, Mr. Festerson.
Thanks, Mr. President. Yes, this is a proposed new development called Country Club Hills at about 63rd and Girard. We have some neighbors that are here today that have had some concerns along the way as this has proceeded through Planning Board, but they've been very reasonable in working with the developer and still are working with the developer, but just need a little more time to wrap up some concerns related to finalizing covenants, some drainage concerns, parking concerns, and density that's been reduced, I believe, from 16 down to 14 lots in this case. So I think given another 2 or 3 weeks will allow them to do that, and we can continue public hearing at that time. So I would go ahead and move approval to lay this over for 3 weeks, which I believe would be June 26th for continued public hearing.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Stothard.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's laid over 3 weeks, 6-0. Liquor, item number 9. Oh, no, I'm sorry. Pursuant to City Council Rule 70, agenda item number 8 shall be laid over 2 weeks for publication and public hearing. Liquor, item number 9. Omaha Tap House, 1403 Farnham Street, Suite 136. Class I liquor license, new application, new location.
Public hearing on agenda item number 9 begins now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents?
They're here, right there.
Please state your name and address.
Kent Letness. I live in Hudson, Wisconsin. 40 Ashbury Court, Hudson, Wisconsin.
Andrew Clothier, 111 South 52nd Street, 68132.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Stothert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Andrew, I have to ask you, you have on your record here a DUI less than a month ago.
That's correct. I had a bad little night one night, and something I'm moving on, and I'm hoping we can still do this, make this work.
Well, as the liquor manager, your job is to make sure you follow all the rules and regulations of the law at your business. And we take the job of a liquor manager very seriously. And less than a month ago, you broke the law.
That is correct, and it's not something that's going to affect the way I manage and run our company, the Omaha Tap House. It's actually something that's going to actually make us better, we're going to do better, or I'm going to do a good job of running our staff and managing and making sure we're checking IDs and serving our customers the proper and correct way, and it's going to help me actually better run our facility.
Have you ever taken a certified class with the state on liquor management?
I'm not. I am working on that with a lawyer and stuff right now, though we'll be doing that soon.
You're working on it with a lawyer?
For my DUI, my first hearing is coming up at the 18th here in June.
All right.
Sorry.
Move to approve subject to Andrew taking the responsible server training course through the state of Nebraska. Second.
Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Stothard? Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President,
No.
it is adopted 4-2.
Thank you.
Item number 10, Flavors Restaurant, 1901 Farnham Street, Class I liquor license, new application, new location.
Public hearing on agenda item number 10 begins now. Are there any proponents?
They're here.
Yeah, my name is Prabir Rapoor, and the property address is 1901 Farnham Street. And this is Rakesh Shah. He's also part of the owner of Flavors.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Stothard?
Yes.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President,
Yes.
it's adopted 6-0. Item number 11, the American Legion Post 374 at 139 1315 S Plaza requests permission for an addition to the present Class C liquor license location of a sidewalk cafe to the south. It does not conform to the City Council Rule 7, and it's because it's 100 feet to the Omaha Baptist Church.
Public hearing on agenda item number 11 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Good afternoon, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Grant Forsberg at 444 Regency Parkway Drive, Suite 203. I'm an attorney and I represent the American Legion Post 374. We're here to ask for the addition to our liquor license so that we can have a sidewalk cafe. There is a Baptist church within the Resequit distance from our location. However, the waiver was granted to get the liquor license approximately January this year when we got the original liquor license. Our post moved from the west side of Millard Avenue to its current location, and we don't foresee any particular problems with our serving. We're a more mature crowd. There's not loud parties and wild bands and things like that.
So are you saying you got a waiver from the Nebraska State Liquor Commission? Is that?
In reference to the distance.
When they first got their liquor license,
Yes.
this is just an addition.
Yeah. Yes.
Okay.
They did.
Do we still need?
Here's what we should. First thing, if you wish to grant it, would be to suspend the City Council Rule 7. Because you have Rule 7, which is separate than the state law.
Yeah.
Suspend, okay.
Ms. Stothard.
Yeah.
Okay. Ms. Stothard.
Yes, I just wanted to ask, have you talked to the folks in the Omaha Baptist Church?
Not at this time. There hasn't been any
You
real
haven't talked,
contact.
so you don't know if they would support this or oppose this?
They should have been provided notice in regards to this hearing, but
But you don't know if they support it or oppose it at all,
Okay.
and you have not made an effort to talk to them?
no. The Sidewalk Cafe is behind the building structure, so it's,
Yeah, but it still has to meet the
Yeah, we
rules.
got a motion to suspend.
but their patrons would not ever see
Do
it.
we have a second?
And like I said, the physical,
No
our
second.
location is already there.
There was a motion made to
To suspend the rule, yeah.
Rule 7.
Second.
Okay, we got a second. It's Rule 7 of our rules. But no, this is the church part of it.
Go ahead, Gina. You're
Is there
done.
a part there? No, there's no part there.
Roll call.
This on suspension rules. Jerem? Stothard?
No.
Festerson? Yes. Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Now,
Second.
that was to suspend the rules. Now we need a motion to approve with a recommendation, or we need a motion to approve if the church has no objection to the expansion of the liquor license.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem? Yes. Stothard?
Yes.
Festerson? Yes. Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Now a motion to reinstate the rules.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem? Stothard? Festerson? Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
It's approved 6-0.
Thank you very much. Have a pleasant afternoon.
Item number 12 is tequila at 3050 L Street. Request permission for an addition to the present Class C liquor license location to license the entire basement area.
Public hearing on agenda item number 12 begins now. Are there any proponents?
There is further. James Martin Davis appearing on behalf of J&F Sons doing business as Tequila. Next to me is Mr. Abraham Juarez. He's the owner of Tequila's Lounge. Basically what we're doing here is not asking for any kind of change in the type of business or any type of change in type of activities. What we're asking for is an expanded license. I think we've set some diagrams in here. Right now, he's got limited storage in his basement, and all we're asking to do is expand the license to allow him greater opportunities to store liquor in the basement and to lock them up and keep them safe.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Gurnett.
Mr. Juarez, see, if I understand your application and what your attorney just said, that you need more storage, but you're also asking for this to occupy and be able to sell down there?
No. Not at all.
And then, but there's a kitchen, you have on your sketch, there's a kitchen, there's storage, there's restrooms. You're not going to have any activity down there whatsoever, like parties or anything like that. It's just for the storage of your products.
And his office.
And his office.
And part of the reason he wants to have additional storage is because he has some very high-priced liquor items that are like $500 a bottle, or like champagne, $75 an ounce, and he likes to keep them stored and locked up down there. But what on the original application, the application and the license only provided by storage approximately 10 by 10 for liquor storage. Well, his business has grown, and he's outgrown that ability to keep all his liquor stored in 10 by 10 facility. And so what he wants to do is just have you allow him to have expanded storage in the business. There's nothing in the basement. There's nothing that's down there other than storage for liquor, a cooler for the beer, and then his office. Okay. There's no sales down there. There's no parties down there. There's no food sold down there. All we're doing is asking to change the license from basement storage from 10 by 10 for liquor storage to allow him to store liquor in the rest of the basement.
Okay. Thank you for clearing that up. I appreciate it.
Sure.
Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem?
Yes.
Stothard?
Yes.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Approved 6-0.
Thank you very much.
Item number 13, the Observatory Lounge, 2810 South 148th Avenue Circle, request permission for an addition of a sidewalk cafe to the west. A is communications from planning. They need to get the proper permits if you wish to grant it, and B is a communications opposing.
Public hearing on agenda item number 13 begins now. Are there any proponents?
That would be me, Sherry DeBartolo, 14852 Harvey Oaks Avenue, Omaha, Nebraska, 68144.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
This is
Subject to.
Subject to their getting the proper permits.
roll call.
Jerem?
I had a question.
Oh. Okay.
There wasn't any further discussion. But, was there going to be any outdoor music?
No, our music is always inside.
Thank you.
Correct.
Yes.
Stothard? Yeah, proper permits.
May I say one thing on that? I apologize. We went on our website, and according to the website, that we printed this off saying that if the structure was less than $500 in value, that a permit was not, you did not need to have one. So we did not request that. We have since found out that it was, so we went this morning and we do have that. So
Okay.
just to let you know, we did receive that.
Stothard's a yes. Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Approved, 6-0 contingent.
Thank you.
Item number 14 is Kurt and Clyde's 2202 South 13th Street. Request permission for deletion of their present Class C liquor license of the part of the basement area.
Public hearing on agenda item number 14 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Mr. President, Mike Kelly, 7134 Pacific, appearing here with Lisa Masitis, who's in the back. As we talked about this morning, this is a request actually to delete some premises, some of the premises. There seems to be some further discussion being asked for, so I understand there's going to be a motion to continue, and that's fine with us. If you have any questions, though, I'd be glad to go through it with you now, but I kind of got the impression this morning you're going to continue it, and we have no objection to layover.
Thank you, Mr. Kelly.
Yeah, but and the owner is here if you have questions.
What is it, 1 week?
1 week.
Second.
And continue public hearing.
Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Jerem?
Pass.
Stothard?
Yes.
Festerson?
Yes.
Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
And Jerem passes the second time. Potential conflict of interest. It's laid over 1 week, 5-0. 5-1 pass, 0-1 passing. Item 15, Bemis Center for Contemporary Arts. Request permission to appoint Logan Seacrest manager.
Public hearing on agenda item number 15 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Hi, I'm Logan Seacrest. I'm the Communications and Events Manager at the Bemis Center, and I live at 801 South 15th Street, Omaha, Nebraska, 68108.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Jerem? Stothard? Festerson? Gurnett?
Yes.
Gray? Mr. President?
Yes.
Approved, 6-0. Item number 16, Omaha Civic Auditorium, 1804 Capitol Avenue. Request permission to appoint Kyle Agersinger manager.
Public hearing on agenda item number 16 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Yes, Kyle Argersinger. My address is 4907 Chicago Street, and I'm requesting liquor license for the Omaha Civic Auditorium at 1804 Capitol Avenue.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Thank you.
Roll call.
Jerem? Stothard? Festerson? Gurnett? Gray?
Yes.
Mr. President?
Yes.
Approved, 6-0. Item number 17, Mai Tai 2, 2279 South 67th Street. Request permission to appoint Michael Raumaker manager.
Public hearing on agenda item number 17 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Yes, Mr. President and council members, my name is Cynthia Epstein. My address is 11516 Nicholas Street, and I represent the Mai Tai 2. The liquor license had been approved in May 1st for the premises, And we had filed for a new manager, and this is Michael Rollmaker, sorry, and to be the new manager, and we are asking approval of the new manager.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Jerem. Yes. Stothard. Yes. Festerson. Yes. Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
Approved 6-0. Item number 18, Godfathers at 2117 South 67th Street. Request permission to appoint Stephanie Riggs manager, and also at the Godfathers at 3141 North 108th Street.
Public hearing on agenda item number 18 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Stephanie Riggs, 4942 Copper Hill Drive, Bellevue, Nebraska, 685157.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Stothard. Yes. Festerson. Yes. Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Approved 6-0. Item number 19, Costco's wholesale at 12300 West Dodge Road. Request permission to appoint Michael Minter manager.
Public hearing on agenda item number 19 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Michael Minter, 1003 South HWS Cleveland, Elkhorn, 68022.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Stothard. Yes. Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray. Mr. President.
Yes.
Approved 6-0. Item number 20 is the Old Mattress Factory Bar and Grill, 501 North 13th Street. Request permission for special designated licenses for beer gardens on June 29th and 30th, July 1st through the 3rd, July 6th through the 7th, and July 13th through the 14th. And I believe there's going to be a request to amend the music till midnight.
Public hearing on agenda item number 20 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Good afternoon. Mark Hennenbach, 1601 Dodge Street, on behalf of the Old Mattress Factory, and that's correct. We would like to amend the application to reflect that the music will cease on each of those nights at 12 midnight as opposed to 1 a.m.
Thank you, sir. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
It's on the amendment. Jerem. Stothard. Yes. Festerson. Yes. Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem. Yes. Stothard. Yes. Festerson. Yes. Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's approved as amended 6-0. We'll take items 21 and 22 together. They're both lottery. 21 is a resolution that Big Red is granted approval to operate a satellite Keno location at Jerry's Bar at 6301 Military, and 23 is at Boozer's at 7402 F Street.
Public hearing on agenda items number 21 and 22 begin now. Are there any proponents?
Yes, Mr. President, members of the council. My name is Katrina Coffey, and I'm Vice President of Marketing for Big Red Keno. We're located at 11248 John Galt Boulevard. I'm here to ask for your approval for the 2 satellite locations before you, and we'd be happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Roll call.
Jerem. Stothard. Festerson. Yes. Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray. Yes. Mr. President.
Yes.
They're both adopted 6-0.
Thank you.
Consent agenda. Any member of the City Council may cause an item placed on the consent agenda to be removed. Items removed from consent agenda shall be taken up by the City Council immediately following the consent agenda in the order in which they were removed, unless otherwise provided by City Council rules of order.
The public hearing on agenda items numbers 23 through 28 were held on May 22nd, 2012. Roll call.
Jerem. Stothard. Festerson. Yes. Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Okay, on the resolution consent agenda, we had a request to remove items number 40 and 41.
The public hearings on agenda items numbers 29 through 39 and 42 through 44 are today. If you wish to address the City Council regarding these items, please come to the microphone, indicate the agenda item number you wish to address, identify yourself by your name, address, who you represent, and if you are a proponent or opponent. Public hearing is closed.
Motion approved.
Second. Roll call.
Jerem. Stothard. Festerson. Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
They're all adopted 6-0. Item number 40 is a resolution that attached agreement between the city and Catholic Charities for partial funding for a micro-enterprise training and development program is hereby approved.
Public hearing on agenda item number 40 begins now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Ms. Stothard.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is the first contract with the city since the sexual orientation, gender identity ordinance has been passed, and this is with the Catholic Charities. And just to clarify a few questions that I have had proposed to me, I wanted to ask Mr. Kratz. A little confusion. Anyone with a contract with the city would not be exempt, whether they were religious organizations or not, correct?
Paul Kratz, City Attorney, that is correct. And this is a contract with the city.
Okay. So the Catholic Charities are not exempt, but they are aware that they would have to abide by the ordinance, and they are in agreement with it. They have no issue with it as far as your knowledge?
That's my understanding, yes.
So it won't affect the tenets of their religion or what?
It should not, no.
Okay. All right. Thank you. I appreciate that.
Motion approved.
Roll call.
Jerem. Stothard.
Yes.
Festerson.
Yes.
Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's adopted 6-0. Item number 41, resolution that the bid of Eagle Hills Excavating to furnish labor and materials to remove Morton swimming pool, bathhouse, and associated concrete utilities fencing located at 5724 South 41st Street, and authorize the purchase order.
Public hearing on agenda item number 41 begins now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Gurnett.
Thank you, Mr. President. The folks in Morton Park Neighborhood Association worked extremely hard 2 years ago to keep that pool open. Unfortunately, the numbers just weren't there to sustain operation during the time that pools are open in our city, and plus the fact that there were several $100,000 worth of repairs that are going to be required to bring that up to code and in compliance with ADA specifications. But I thought it was important to my colleagues and to the general public that their efforts have not gone unnoticed. Mr. Bench, the proposal to remove, that's before us today, is to remove the current swimming pool and the associated piping and wiring and concrete and all of that. Is that accurate?
Brooke Bench, Acting Parks Director. That is true.
Okay. And the Parks Department has made a couple of proposals to the neighborhood group to redo or rehab the park, and also to have some sort of water feature in that park, so it will not go, Morton Park will not go without a water feature. Is that correct?
Brooke Bench, Acting Parks Director. That is correct. We're looking at putting a water playground in at Morton Park and expanding the trail and looking at some other improvements. We had met with the neighborhood group about 6-7 weeks ago, and we've got input from them, and that's kind of what they'd like to see at that location.
Okay. So there was a positive response when you went to the neighborhood group and then opened this up to further discussion throughout that community. Is that true as well?
That is correct. It was, I think, when most people realized how much money it was going to be to put in the pool, which is almost $500,000, that it was there was a lot of other good options that were on the table.
Okay. And how much does it cost to get into a pool nowadays?
It's $4.
And the water feature that you're proposing for Martin Park will cost how much?
That will be free.
Woo. That's not bad. Thank you. Motion to approve.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem. Stothard. Festerson. Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
Adopted 6-0. Item number 45, resolution to attach substantial amendment to the Omaha Council Bluffs Consortium Consolidated Submission for Community Development Program 2012 Action Plan, permitting the award of emergency solution grants funds to Catholic charities, the Stevens Center Emergency Shelter, Sienna Francis House Emergency Shelter, Help the Homeless, Open Door, Lydia House Emergency Shelter, Heartland Family Services, Family Housing Advisory Services, Together Incorporated. The Iowa Institute for Community Alliance is hereby approved.
Public hearing on agenda item number 45 begins now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Second.
Roll call.
Jerem. Stothard. Festerson. Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.
It's adopted 7-0. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7F, agenda items 46 through 48 shall be laid over 3 weeks for publication and public hearing. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7D, the public hearing on agenda item 49 through 54 shall be held on third reading. Ordinance on second reading, item 55, ordinance approving the program agreement with the Nebraska Department of Roads, being major street resurfacing.
Public hearing on agenda item number 55 begins now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 56, ordinance approving a professional services agreement with Alfred Benish Company for the construction engineering services for various street resurfacing.
Public hearing on agenda item number 56 begins now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item number 57 is ordinance approving a change order to a contract with the Deffenbaugh Industries, being garbage, recycling materials, and yard waste collection for the establishment of fuel surcharge, expansion of yard waste collection dates, extension of the recycling services to group dwellings, and other amendments to enhance the sustainability and efficiency of the solid waste collection program.
Public hearing on agenda item number 57 begins now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed. Mr. Festerson.
Thanks, Mr. President. Mr. Gray, if you would. Just a couple questions for you, as this is a fairly major increase in the cost of our trash hauling contract. We discussed many of the issues this morning, but I think it's worth just kind of reviewing on the record of why this is occurring. And so my first question for you is, what is triggering this change to our current contract? Because I think what we found is due to fuel prices, the current hauler can't sustain its current method of practice. And so my first question is, why would we have to change our contract to accommodate that?
Marty Gray, Public Works Department. The simple answer is that we think right now is probably the cheapest option for us, is to try to help our contractor out with a fuel adjustment factor, because the alternative would be for them not to be able to sustain the contract and go into default, and that would cause a lot of community disruption. And our consultants are telling us that any other alternative that we pursue is likely to be $4 to $6 million more than what we're paying now. So it's really a financial decision. And yes, it's been coming for a long time. It's just they've been losing money for a long time, and it's reached a point where they have to make some decisions.
So to do nothing would risk the contractor going into bankruptcy and therefore disruption in service, or to rebid, we've estimated could cost several $1 million more than what we're talking about today.
That's correct.
And another $1 million is hard to swallow for our trash hauling. But if there's a silver lining, there are some additional features that would be offered in this mix, which are additional recycling services and yard waste year-round. Can you describe that a little bit?
Yeah, one of the problems that we have with our contracts, the way they're set up now, particularly the yard waste contract, is that one's seasonal. And since we shut that program down for the winter months, what it tends to create in some years is a big accumulation at the end of the year as people are trying to get their yards cleaned up before the service stops. And then through the winter, they end up accumulating yard waste. And then in spring, just when we're starting things back up and trying to get the employees, it's just a huge amount of work. By leveling that out over the winter, we think that it'll provide a higher level of service to our residents. And because we're commingling that material, they can do it efficiently and not necessarily increase cost. The amount of yard waste in a given year is fixed. It's just the time period over which we pick it up that is variable.
And it's the same truck coming anyway, so you aren't incurring additional costs for them to do that.
During the yard waste season as it exists right now, we'll have a separate truck continue to pick up the yard waste because that material is taken to a site where we compost it and produce Omagrow. But during the winter months, we currently have too many leaves in our inventory that we can't take anymore, so we're already taking that to the landfill. So this really is just a more efficient approach for both of us.
I should correct myself. I think it said apartment buildings, but that's not the case. It would spread to complexes of, it's a 5-plex or less, I think is what you said?
Yeah, the City of Omaha's contract is a residential collection program, but we do provide a process where people that have a 5-plex or less and who can be accommodated by a garbage service with 10 cans in total or less, that they can register with us. And we've got about 200 of those group dwelling units, we call them right now. Currently, under our contract, we don't provide them with anything but garbage collection, no yard waste, no recycling. But Deffenbaugh has agreed that as part of this change order negotiation process, that they will, moving forward, provide recycling services on request from these 200 and some house or residences.
Okay, thanks. And Ms. Specker-Teller, just a question for you too that we talked about in Finance Committee. So an additional $1 million per year is hard to swallow. You are already planning, if this is approved, to accommodate that in the 2012 budget and are planning at this point to have that additional expense accommodated in the 2013 budget without a tax increase, right?
Pam Specker-Teller, Finance Director. Yes, that's correct. It will be a partial in 2012.
All right. Okay. Thank you.
Ms. Stother.
There it goes. Now that you're still up there, I think all the questions, or most of the questions that I was going to ask Pete did already clarify. This contract, though, would allow the city, if they chose to extend this contract for another 5 years. Isn't that correct?
Yes, this contract would normally run through 2015. But there's a 5-year option, and in this change order, Deffenbaugh is committing to the city that, yes, if we choose to exercise that option, they believe that with the fuel adjustment factor in, that they could sustain it another 5 years if we decide that's what we want to do.
At the same bid price that they have given us for the contract?
Yes, inflation adjusted on an annual basis, but in accordance with the bid price.
Okay, and we do have figures and data to back up what Deffenbaugh is saying as far as they're really losing money on this, on our contract right now with the fuel cost.
Yeah, I don't want to speak for her, but Pam had her auditors go out and actually review their books, and we are convinced that what they're telling us is true.
All right. I think that's all I had. Thank you.
Mr. Jerem.
Yes, and I think any time we make a major financial adjustment like this on something that's been bid, we want to be mindful that we're not sending a signal to people who do business with the city by bidding that if they make a bad deal that the city will somehow bail them out. We have to be respectful of the taxpayers' dollars and be respectful to the bidding process and people who wish to do business with the city and put in honest and arm's-length bids but maybe didn't get the business this time. I'd also like to know your commitment in terms of making the trash hauling process more efficient in terms of the fuel demands and the types of vehicles that are being used when we have people hauling trucks that are big old diesel trucks that are burning $4 a gallon fuel almost from the eastern parts of the city, particularly Council Member Gray, Gurnett, and my districts that go all the way out to Elk Grove every time their truck is filled during a hauling operation. That's burning a lot of fuel. So I'd like to know what, if any, efforts that you're doing or the department's doing to specify or encourage natural gas vehicles, consideration of transfer stations, or even alternative disposal locations?
Yeah, well, within the change order itself, there are two items that address that concern. One is that Duff-and-Baugh has made a commitment to reasonably attempt, as they replace their fleet over the years, to look very hard at compressed natural gas as an alternative. It's being done very successful. It hasn't been too successful in a retrofit to an old truck. It's just almost cost prohibitive. But in a new truck coming out, it's a very attractive option, and they're committed to look seriously at that. The other thing that's in the contract that long term is going to bring about some efficiencies is if we decide to move forward with an extension of the contract, we're really long overdue to resector the city in terms of days of the week. Right now, part of our collection problems that we experience periodically is because we've lost balance in the sectors. As the city grows west, the waste load from the western areas is disproportionate to the eastern, and we really need to redistrict it long term just to kind of even that load out. That can be a very painful thing, just like any other kind of redistricting, political or otherwise, but it's something that's long overdue, and that under this change order we agreed to look at. Now, in terms of what Omaha and essentially the map of the region is looking at is solid waste management in general. And you hit the nail right on the head. Transfer stations are a possibility moving forward. And I think that's one of the things over the next couple of years as we contemplate whether to exercise the extension of the garbage contract is solid waste management in general. And should we have a new contract that involves perhaps a transfer station? Those are very serious questions that I think we need to think about.
Thank you.
Marty, I know we talked about this briefly this morning, but when this contract was signed, which was in 2004, is that correct?
That's correct.
Diesel fuel was approximately how much per gallon?
It was about $2.12 a gallon for diesel fuel.
And today it is?
Around $4.
$4 a gallon. So, I mean, there is quite a variance in the price of fuel between 2004 and 2012. And then also, if diesel would go down to the price that it was at when the contract was negotiated, then the fuel surcharge would be suspended. Is that correct?
Yeah, the way the change order is written is we essentially will establish that $2.12 as a monthly benchmark. And so there are national charts that the government keeps of what the average fuel price is for this region. So every month we will look and say, we were at $2.12 when they bid, now we're at X. What's the difference and how much fuel do they use? So yes, if the fuel prices come down, and in fact if they go below $2.12, we would expect a negative deduct. I don't think that's very likely to happen, but it is anchored in that 2004 price.
Thank you. Do we have a motion?
This is just public hearing.
Oh, public hearing. Go ahead.
Okay. Item 58, ordinance to amend Section 23-177 by adding the employment classification titled Parking Manager.
Public hearing on agenda item number 58 begins now. Are there any proponents?
Yes, hello. Joe Gudenrath, Executive Director of the Downtown Improvement District, 1620 Dodge Street. This January, the Downtown Improvement District Board, made up of downtown property owners, businesses, and residents, approved a resolution supporting the downtown parking study and management plan, which includes the hiring of a parking manager. The study and the plan clearly indicate that proper management of our public parking assets can address a system that does not balance on and off-street parking, that is critical to the current issues being faced by our businesses and for the future development of downtown Omaha. So I request your support of this parking management position. Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Item 59, ordinance to amend Section 23-177 by amending the pay range for the employment classification entitled Research Specialist.
Public hearing on agenda item number 59 begins now. Are there any proponents? Are there any opponents? Public hearing is closed.
Pursuant to City Council Rule 70, the public hearing on agenda items 60 through 63 shall be held on third reading. Pursuant to City Council Rule 7Z, the public hearing on agenda items 64 through 73 shall be held on the second reading.
Motion adjourned.
Second. Roll call.
Jerem.
Yes.
Stothard. Yes. Festerson. Yes. Gurnett.
Yes.
Gray.
Yes.
Mr. President.
Yes.